The silence here, it's a living thing. It presses in, thick and suffocating, punctuated only by the distant, disembodied hum of unseen machinery, or the faint, almost imperceptible scratching from behind sealed doors. You thought you knew what isolation felt like. You were wrong. This isn't just being alone. It's being contained. And not for your protection, but for the protection of everyone else from her. Welcome to the grim reality, the unsettling truth of what it truly means to be a caretaker for SCP-053. Forget your notions of a typical job, a simple assignment. This is a life sentence, willingly or unwillingly undertaken within the cold, unyielding embrace of the Foundation. My purpose today isn't to entertain, but to peel back the layers of sterile formality and expose the raw, nerve-fraying experience of this unique form of incarceration. I aim to inform you with chilling clarity about the inescapable facets of this existence. We'll delve into the pervasive, almost suffocating sense of perpetual danger that clings to every moment, every interaction. We'll explore the psychological toll, the subtle erosion of the self under constant scrutiny, and the ever-present threat of an incomprehensible contagion. We'll examine the twisted dynamic of a relationship built on fear and a desperate, fragile sense of duty. And perhaps most disturbingly, we'll confront the insidious ways in which this containment, meant for her, inevitably begins to contain you. Prepare yourself. The light here is dim, and the shadows hold far more than just darkness. They hold the truth of what it's like. The first, most immediate aspect of this arrangement is the pervasive, inescapable sense of imminent threat. It's not a sudden jump scare. It's a constant, low-frequency hum beneath your skin. Every single interaction with SCP-053 carries the weight of a loaded gun. You know the protocol. No direct skin contact. Maintain a distance. Never look directly into her eyes for too long. But knowing doesn't erase the primal fear that courses through you when she turns her head, when her gaze, innocent as it may appear, drifts towards you. You become hyper-aware of your own body, your own impulses. A sudden itch on your arm, a momentary lapse in concentration. The thought alone sends a jolt of ice through your veins. You're not just protecting yourself from her, you're protecting everyone else from you should the unthinkable happen. The Foundation has made that chillingly clear. The containment procedures aren't just for 053, they're for the potential vector you might become. Then there's the auditory landscape of this existence. It's a paradox of sorts. The facility itself is often eerily quiet, the silence amplifying every creak, every distant metallic clang. Yet, within her chamber, there's often a child's laughter. Innocent, carefree, and utterly terrifying. Because you know the aftermath of that laughter. You've seen the reports, the incident logs. That sweet, childish sound is the prelude to inexplicable violence, to the sudden, gruesome demise of anyone else unfortunate enough to cross her path. The sound becomes a trigger, a warning bell that tightens every muscle in your body. The visual aspect is equally disturbing. You're constantly observing, through reinforced glass, through monitors. You see her playing, drawing, sometimes just sitting quietly. And in those moments of apparent normalcy, your mind races. Is this the calm before the storm? Is she merely biding her time? The cognitive dissonance is a torment. You see a child, an innocent, yet you know with absolute certainty that she is an anomaly of unimaginable destructive potential. This constant internal conflict, this battle between what your eyes perceive and what your knowledge dictates, is a relentless assault on your sanity. Every moment is a tightrope walk over an abyss of unknowable horror. Beyond the immediate sensory assaults, there's the insidious psychological conditioning that begins to warp your perception of reality. You are, in essence, a prisoner, albeit one with a specific, horrifying duty. The Foundation's protocols become your new Bible, each directive etched into your mind with the weight of potential catastrophe. Every movement, every conversation, every moment of your day is governed by the need to maintain containment, not just of 053, but of the unpredictable forces she embodies. The isolation is profound. While there are other personnel in the facility, your role as 053's caretaker sets you apart. There's a distance, a wary respect, perhaps even a subtle fear in their eyes. You become a walking symbol of the danger, a person constantly teetering on the precipice of an anomalous event. Casual conversation becomes a luxury, genuine human connection, a distant memory. Your world shrinks to the sterile confines of the containment zone and the unsettling presence of the child. Sleep, when it comes, is rarely restful. The mind, even in unconsciousness, remains vigilant. Nightmares are a common companion. Visions of sudden, inexplicable violence, of your own body betraying you, of the Foundation's grim assessment teams arriving. You wake in a cold sweat, the memory of the dream blending seamlessly with the waking dread that is your constant companion. And then there's the erosion of your own identity. You are no longer just a person with a name, a past, hopes and dreams. You are a caretaker, a designated observer, a potential victim. Your individuality slowly bleeds away, replaced by the role, by the protocols, by the chilling proximity to the anomalous. You become an extension of the containment procedures, a living, breathing barrier between SCP-053 and the world outside. This isn't just a job. It's a transformation, a slow, agonizing metamorphosis into something less human, more something else, something defined by the horror you're tasked to manage. The insidious nature of this containment extends beyond your immediate physical and psychological state. It seeps into your very perception of time and normalcy. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months, marked only by routine shifts, mandated psychological evaluations that feel more like interrogations, and the ever-present, unchanging presence of 053. The outside world, with its fluctuating news cycles and mundane concerns, becomes a distant, irrelevant hum. You are no longer part of that world. You are part of this world, a carefully constructed bubble of anomaly and rigid procedure. Consider the concept of normal here. What is normal when a child's innocent giggle can herald gruesome death? What is normal when your primary task is to prevent a catastrophic outbreak of violence simply by existing in proximity to another being? Your understanding of cause and effect, of human interaction, becomes irrevocably skewed. You learn to interpret the subtlest shifts in 053's demeanor, not through empathy, but through a lens of potential threat assessment. A slight frown, a sudden stillness. These are not signs of a child's fleeting mood, but potential precursors to a containment breach. And then there's the constant internal debate, the moral tightrope you walk. You are dealing with a child, or what appears to be one. There are moments, fleeting and dangerous, where you might feel a pang of something akin to pity or even affection. But these emotions are poisons here. They are vulnerabilities that could lead to catastrophic failure. You are trained, conditioned to suppress them, to view 053 as an object, an anomaly, a threat, never a person. Yet, sometimes in the dead of night, when the facility is at its most silent, you might find yourself wondering if there's a conscious maliciousness behind her effects, or if she's merely a tragic, unknowing conduit for something far worse. The answer, if it exists, is beyond your reach, and perhaps beyond your comprehension. This uncertainty, this lack of definitive understanding, is another layer of the torment. It gnaws at the edges of your sanity, a constant unanswered question echoing in the silent corridors of your mind. Perhaps one of the most chilling aspects of this containment is the understanding that your tenure here is, by its very nature, finite. Not in the way a normal job ends with retirement or a transfer. Here, the cessation of duty often comes with a much darker, more permanent finality. You are aware, from the moment you accept this assignment, of the statistics, the incident reports, the grim history of those who came before. Each new caretaker is another roll of the dice, another experiment in human endurance against the inexplicable. This awareness isn't a constant screaming terror, but rather a cold, quiet dread that settles deep in your bones. It's the knowledge that your dedication, your vigilance, your very life hangs by the thinnest thread. One misstep, one moment of weakness, one unforeseen anomalous manifestation, and you become another cautionary tale, another entry in a long list of casualties. This isn't just about managing a threat, it's about managing your own mortality in its shadow. The Foundation, in its clinical efficiency, provides support systems, psychological debriefings, access to therapists, albeit ones who specialize in trauma far beyond the civilian experience. But these feel like mere gestures against the overwhelming existential burden. How do you process a fear that stems from an entity that defies logic and reason? How do you cope with the knowledge that your eventual demise, should it occur within this containment, will be meticulously documented, analyzed, and then filed away as another data point in the ongoing effort to understand the anomaly? There's a grim irony in being contained alongside the very anomaly you're meant to watch. You are both subjects in a way. She, the primary focus, and you, the secondary, the experimental variable. Your reactions, your endurance, your breaking point, all are observed, recorded, and factored into future protocols. You are not just a caretaker. You are a living, breathing component of the containment system, and like any component, you are ultimately expendable. This cold, hard truth is the invisible chain that binds you more effectively than any physical restraint. It's what truly makes you contained, not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically, and ultimately existentially. The erosion of trust is another silent killer in this environment. Not necessarily trust in your colleagues, but trust in the very fabric of reality, and more disturbingly, trust in yourself. You constantly question your perceptions, your reactions. Was that a genuine flicker of malevolence in her eyes, or just the trick of the light and your own overactive imagination? Did you feel a subtle shift in the air, a premonition, or was it merely the strain of constant vigilance playing tricks on your mind? The line between objective observation and paranoid delusion blurs, making every decision, every report, a painstaking exercise in self-doubt. This self-doubt is actively cultivated in a way. The Foundation's psychological assessments aren't just for your well-being. They're designed to identify cracks, to measure the extent of your psychological deterioration. You are a data point, and your mental state is a critical variable. You learn to perform, to present a facade of unwavering competence, even as your internal landscape crumbles. Because showing weakness, showing the true extent of the horror you feel, could lead to your removal. And removal, while perhaps a release, often means replacement and the perpetuation of the cycle for another unfortunate soul. The loss of personal agency is profound. Your life, your schedule, your very thoughts are dictated by the needs of containment. There's no room for personal desires, for spontaneity, for anything that might jeopardize the delicate balance. You become a cog in a machine, a highly specialized tool whose sole purpose is to mitigate an existential threat. This isn't a career, it's a sentence, one that you volunteered for, but a sentence nonetheless. And the chilling realization is that even if you were to somehow escape this assignment, the scars, the paranoia, the fundamental shift in your worldview would remain. You wouldn't just leave the facility and SCP-053 would leave an indelible mark on you, forever altering what it means to be you. Perhaps the most insidious, key aspect of this containment is the way it reshapes your understanding of innocence. Before, a child's laughter, their playful curiosity, their inherent vulnerability would evoke warmth, perhaps a protective instinct. Here, with SCP-053, those very same traits become harbingers of dread. Her gentle humming, the way she might tilt her head in apparent confusion, the simple act of drawing a picture. These actions in any other context would be benign. But here, they are loaded with a terrifying potential. Each moment of apparent calm is a tightrope walk over an abyss. You learn to interpret kindness as a precursor to cruelty and sweetness as a mask for something truly monstrous. This psychological rewiring is profoundly damaging. It doesn't just affect your interactions with SCP-053, it seeps into your broader understanding of humanity, of good and evil. If something so outwardly pure can harbor such destructive force, where does that leave the rest of the world? Can anything truly be trusted at face value anymore? This constant re-evaluation of perceived innocence is a heavy burden. It means that even in moments when SCP-053 is genuinely calm, genuinely engaged in a harmless activity, your mind is racing, scanning for the telltale signs, the subtle shifts that indicate the onset of her anomalous effect. You are always on guard, always anticipating the worst, even when the immediate situation presents no overt threat. This hypervigilance isn't just exhausting, it's soul-crushing. It drains you, leaving you perpetually on edge, unable to truly relax or find solace. And in those quiet moments, when the facility is still and the only sound is the gentle hum of the containment systems, you might find yourself staring at her, this small child, and feeling a profound, unsettling blend of pity and terror. Pity for the creature she is, trapped by her own nature, and terror for the sheer, unadulterated power she wields, a power that could, at any moment, unravel the very fabric of your existence and the lives of anyone unfortunate enough to be near. This paradoxical cocktail of emotions is a constant companion, a heavy weight on your chest that never truly lifts. The silence, when it falls, is rarely comforting. More often, it's a prelude, a heavy, pregnant quiet that stretches, taut and thin, before the inevitable snap. You learn to dread the absence of sound almost, as much as you dread the sound itself. A sudden cessation of SCP-053's humming, the abrupt halt of her crayons scratching against paper. These are not moments of peace. They are alarm bells ringing silently in your mind, signaling a shift, a transition into the unknown. This peculiar relationship with sound extends to the sounds you do hear. The distant thrum of the facility's ventilation system, the muted footsteps of other personnel outside the reinforced door, the subtle creaks and groans of the building settling. These noises, once innocuous background elements, become imbued with new meaning. They are the fragile membrane between you and the outside, a constant reminder of your isolation and of the protection that barrier, however tenuous, provides. Each sound is meticulously filtered through a lens of potential threat, every creak a possible breach, every distant voice a reminder of the world you are no longer truly a part of. And then there are the sounds you make. Your own breathing, amplified in the quiet confines, becomes a testament to your continued existence, a reminder that you are still here, still enduring. Every movement, every rustle of your uniform, every tiny cough or sigh is carefully controlled, suppressed. You become hyper-aware of your own physical presence, striving for a near-silent vigilance that borders on the unnatural. You try not to disturb the fragile peace, not to provoke, not to draw attention. You become, in essence, a ghost in your own skin, a silent observer in a terrifying, meticulously managed drama. This enforced quietude, this suppression of your own natural human sounds, further erodes your sense of self, turning you into an extension of the sterile, silent containment chamber itself. The erosion of time itself is another insidious facet of this containment. Days bleed into nights, weeks into months, marked less by the rising and setting of the sun, and more by the rhythm of containment protocols and the unpredictable bursts of 053's anomalous activity. The outside world, with its seasons and holidays and personal milestones, becomes a distant, fading memory. You exist in an eternal present, a ceaseless vigil where the past is irrelevant and the future an ever-looming question mark. There are no weekends here, no vacations, no sense of progress or advancement, only the perpetual now. This temporal distortion is profoundly disorienting. It strips away the comforting linearity of human experience, leaving you adrift in a sea of identical moments. You might struggle to recall the last time you saw natural sunlight, felt fresh air, or engaged in a conversation that wasn't directly related to containment. Your personal life, if you had one before this assignment, withers and dies from neglect. Relationships fray, friendships fade, and the person you once were slowly, inevitably, becomes a stranger. You are left with only 053 and the stark, sterile confines of her chamber. She becomes the central axis, around which your entire existence revolves. Her moods dictate your stress levels, her needs define your duties, her very presence dictates the parameters of your life. This isn't just a job, it's an all-consuming absorption, a total surrender of individual autonomy to the demands of an anomaly. And in this timeless, isolated existence, the mundane becomes deeply significant, and the significant chillingly mundane. A new drawing from 053, a rare moment of sustained quiet, the delivery of a fresh set of crayons. These become the events that punctuate your unchanging reality. Conversely, the constant threat of lethal anomalous manifestation, the knowledge of past casualties, the ever-present danger, these profound realities become simply part of the background, the static hum of your daily life. The extraordinary becomes ordinary, and the ordinary imbued with a desperate, fragile importance. This inversion of perception is one of the most terrifying and lasting legacies of being contained within SCP-053's orbit. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this containment is the subtle, insidious way it compels you to develop a twisted form of affection, or at least a deeply ingrained protectiveness, towards SCP-053. Despite the constant, palpable threat she represents, despite the gruesome deaths you've witnessed or narrowly avoided, you are her caretaker. You are the one who ensures her needs are met, who observes her patterns, who is, in a very real sense, responsible for her continued existence within these walls. This responsibility, coupled with her childlike appearance and often innocent demeanor, can foster a dangerous, almost paternal or maternal instinct. You find yourself making excuses for her, rationalizing her outbursts as mere childish tantrums, even as you know the horrific consequences. You might even feel a pang of something akin to sympathy when she looks sad or lonely, forgetting for a fleeting moment the abyss that lies beneath that innocent facade. This emotional entanglement is a psychological trap, a cruel irony of the containment protocols. It's designed to ensure your vigilance, to make you intimately familiar with her nuances, but it also opens a dangerous vulnerability. This warped connection can lead to a sense of profound isolation from your peers. While they see a dangerous anomaly, a threat to be managed, you see something more complex. You see the child who hums lullabies, who draws strange, beautiful pictures, who occasionally offers a rare, fleeting smile. This unique perspective, born of constant proximity and a morbid sense of duty, sets you apart. It creates a chasm between your experience and that of others, even those within the Foundation. They can never truly understand the tightrope walk you perform daily, balancing professional duty with this unsettling, involuntary emotional response. And then there's the guilt of knowing that you are, in a way, complicit in her containment, in her perpetual isolation. The guilt of the lives lost, knowing that your momentary lapse, your misinterpretation of a subtle cue, could unleash unimaginable horror. This omnipresent guilt is a silent, gnawing companion, a constant reminder of the immense stakes involved and the heavy burden you carry. It's a testament to the sheer psychological brutality of being SCP-053's caretaker, where even the most basic human emotions are twisted into instruments of torment. The constant awareness of your own expendability is another key aspect, a chilling undercurrent that permeates every moment spent in 053's presence. You are not irreplaceable. You are a cog in a machine, a temporary solution, a warm body fulfilling a grim necessity. This isn't just a philosophical notion, it's a stark operational reality. You see the rotation schedules, the reports of previous caretakers, the quiet disappearances. You know, with a cold certainty, that your tenure is finite, and its conclusion is rarely a peaceful retirement. This knowledge breeds a peculiar fatalism. It doesn't necessarily make you reckless, but it does imbue your actions with a desperate edge. Every day is a reprieve. Every successful shift a small victory against an inevitable end. You learn to live with the spectre of your own demise, not as a distant possibility, but as an ever-present companion, a quiet whisper in the back of your mind. It sharpens your focus, yes, but it also erodes your hope, your sense of a future beyond these walls. You become a living testament to the Foundation's ruthless pragmatism. Your life, your well-being, your sanity. These are secondary to the containment of the anomaly. This isn't a criticism. It's simply the brutal truth of the situation. You are a tool, and like any tool, you will eventually wear out or break. The Foundation will simply replace you. This dehumanizing aspect, while never explicitly stated, is implicitly understood, woven into the very fabric of your existence as 053's caretaker. And in this grim calculus, your personal suffering, your psychological deterioration, becomes just another data point in a long series of observations. Your nightmares, your growing paranoia, the subtle shifts in your personality. These are not signs of a breakdown to be addressed, but rather expected outcomes, part of the documented psychological toll. You are observed, analyzed, and managed, not as an individual with intrinsic worth, but as a variable in the complex equation of containment. This cold, detached assessment of your spiraling mental state is perhaps one of the cruelest aspects, stripping away not just your future, but your very humanity in the present. The psychological games played by your own mind become another layer of torment. You begin to question everything, your perceptions, your memories, even your own sanity. Was that a genuine smile from 053, or a subtle precursor to a violent outburst? Did you really hear a whisper, or was it just the static of your overstressed mind? The line between reality and delusion blurs, thinned by constant stress and the inherent unreality of your situation. You are forced to rely on your own judgment in a scenario where your judgment is perpetually compromised. This self-doubt is insidious. It gnaws at your confidence, leaving you adrift in a sea of uncertainty. You find yourself second-guessing every decision, replaying every interaction, searching for clues, for signs you might have missed. The fear of making a mistake, of misinterpreting 053's subtle cues, is a heavy burden. Not just the fear of your own demise, but the far greater fear of inadvertently causing a containment breach, of unleashing horror upon an unsuspecting world. This profound responsibility weighs on you, grinding down your mental fortitude. Sleep, when it comes, is rarely restorative. It's often invaded by nightmares, distorted echoes of your waking fears. You see the victims, their twisted forms, their vacant eyes. You hear the innocent laughter, followed by the chilling screams. Sometimes you dream of 053, not as the harmless child she often appears to be, but as the monstrous force she can become, her small hands reaching, her eyes burning with an unnatural light. These nocturnal terrors bleed into your waking hours, making the distinction between dream and reality even harder to maintain. The constant state of hypervigilance required by your role leaves you perpetually exhausted, yet wired. Your nerves are frayed, your senses overloaded. Every shadow seems to hold a threat. Every unexpected sound sends a jolt of adrenaline through your system. This isn't just a job. It's a living nightmare, a slow, agonizing descent into a state where fear and paranoia become your constant companions, warping your perception of the world and leaving you a hollowed-out shell of your former self. The profound physical toll is another undeniable truth of this existence. It's not just the psychological strain that grinds you down, it's the way your body reacts to constant, low-grade terror. Adrenaline courses through your veins almost perpetually, leaving you with a constant tremor, a persistent tightness in your chest. Your heart races at the slightest unexpected noise. Your breath catches, shallow and quick. This isn't just anxiety, It's a physiological response to living on the razor's edge. Sleep, as mentioned, offers little respite, and often it simply doesn't come. Insomnia becomes a chronic condition, fueled by the fear of what might happen while you're unconscious, or by the sheer inability to quiet a mind constantly replaying scenarios, analyzing risks, and bracing for impact. The exhaustion is bone deep, a pervasive ache that settles into your muscles and joints, making every movement an effort. Your eyes are perpetually shadowed, bloodshot from lack of rest, reflecting the internal weariness that consumes you. Your appetite dwindles, or perhaps it swings wildly between periods of nervous starvation and desperate, comfortless overeating. The food, delivered in sterile trays, tastes like ash. Your body, deprived of proper nourishment and sleep, begins to show the strain. Weight loss is common, your frame becoming gaunt, your skin pale and sallow. You age prematurely, the lines of worry etched deep into your face, the light dimming in your eyes. You become a walking testament to the corrosive power of chronic stress. Even your immune system suffers. The constant flood of stress hormones weakens your defenses, leaving you vulnerable to every passing cold, every minor infection. A simple cough can escalate into something more serious. A fever can become debilitating, precisely because your body is too busy preparing for a fight-or-flight response that never fully resolves. You live in a state of perpetual physiological alert, and your body pays the price, slowly but surely, breaking down under the relentless pressure. This isn't just about mental anguish. It's about the physical decay that accompanies a life spent teetering on the brink of horror. Perhaps the most profound and terrifying transformation is the erosion of your own moral compass. When you live in such close proximity to a being that inspires such unquantifiable horror, your understanding of right and wrong, of good and evil, begins to fray at the edges. You witness acts of unimaginable violence, and while you may initially recoil, over time, a dulling begins. The sheer repetition, the constant exposure, the necessity of maintaining a detached clinical demeanor in the face of absolute chaos, it all takes its toll. You begin to redefine what constitutes normal. The screams of those afflicted by 053's presence become less shocking, more a part of the background noise of your existence. The sight of blood, of twisted limbs, while still disturbing, loses some of its visceral impact. This isn't to say you become a monster. Rather, you become a survivor, adapting to an environment that would break lesser individuals. But this adaptation comes at a steep price, a desensitization that severs you from the common human experience. You might even find yourself making morally ambiguous choices, rationalizing them as necessary for containment, for the greater good, for the survival of those outside this sterile, terrifying cage. The lives lost become numbers, statistics in a report rather than individual tragedies. This isn't a conscious, malicious decision, but a slow, insidious creep of pragmatism, born of a constant exposure to the absolute worst of anomalous reality. The mirror reflects a stranger, not just physically diminished, but spiritually altered. The person who walked into this containment zone with their clear sense of morality and their inherent human empathy is slowly replaced by someone hardened, jaded, and perhaps a little bit broken. This erosion of self, this slow corruption of the soul, is the ultimate price of being 053's caretaker. You contain the anomaly, but in doing so, the anomaly begins to contain you, reshaping your very essence into something unrecognizable, something forever marked by the darkness you've been forced to confront. The profound sense of isolation is perhaps the most pervasive and insidious aspect of life as 053's caretaker. You are, in essence, a prisoner of your duty, confined to a sterile environment where the only constant companion is a being capable of instigating horrific violence. The walls of the containment chamber become the walls of your world, and the outside, with its mundane joys and sorrows, quickly fades into an abstract memory. You are cut off from everything that once defined you. Family, friends, hobbies, personal aspirations. They all become distant echoes. Communication is strictly monitored, heavily redacted, if it's allowed at all. You cease to be a person with a life beyond these containment protocols and become simply the caretaker, an extension of the facility itself. Your identity slowly dissolves, replaced by the grim reality of your purpose. There is no one to confide in, no one who truly understands the unique horror you face daily. Other personnel, even those within the Foundation, operate in different spheres, dealing with different threats. Their understanding of your specific plight is superficial at best, non-existent at worst. This isolation breeds a unique kind of loneliness, a profound emptiness that gnaws at your soul. You are surrounded by constant threat, yet utterly alone in confronting its psychological toll. The silence, when 053 is quiet, is not peaceful. It's heavy, pregnant with unspoken dread. The interactions with the 053, while sometimes appearing innocent, are fraught with peril and entirely transactional, never offering genuine human connection. You are forced into a bizarre, one-sided relationship with an anomaly, incapable of true empathy or understanding. Even after your tenure ends, should you survive, the isolation doesn't simply vanish. The secrets you carry, the horrors you've witnessed, are too profound, too disturbing to share with anyone in the normal world. You become an outsider, forever marked by experiences that no one else can comprehend. The world you left behind continues to move on, but you remain frozen in the perpetual present of 053's containment, forever haunted by the echoes of her laughter and the screams that followed. This severance from humanity, this profound and unyielding solitude, is a scar that no amount of time or distance can ever truly heal. Beyond the isolation and the physical decay, there's the insidious erosion of personal agency. You are no longer an individual making choices. You are a cog in a vast, impersonal machine. Every action, every interaction is dictated by protocols, by the chillingly precise demands of containment. Your life is meticulously scheduled, your movements monitored, your very thoughts, if they deviate from the required professional detachment, are considered a liability. There's a pervasive sense of being watched, not just by surveillance cameras, but by the unseen eyes of the Foundation itself. Every report you file, every observation you make, is scrutinized, analyzed for any deviation, any sign of weakness, any hint of emotional compromise. You become acutely aware that your performance is constantly being evaluated, not for your well-being, but for the continued, flawless containment of the anomaly. This constant, silent judgment fosters an environment of self-censorship, where genuine feelings are suppressed, replaced by a carefully constructed facade of competence and indifference. This loss of agency extends to your very perception of self-worth. You are expendable, a fact reinforced with every incident, every casualty. Your value is measured solely by your ability to maintain containment, to survive the next interaction, to delay the inevitable. Your personal history, your hopes, your dreams, they are irrelevant. All that matters is the present moment and your function within it. This dehumanization is subtle but devastating, stripping away your sense of self-importance, replacing it with a grim understanding of your utilitarian role. Even the small freedoms, the simple choices that define a normal life, are absent. What to eat, when to sleep, what to wear, what to think. These are all either predetermined or heavily influenced by the containment environment. You are a tool, finely honed and precariously balanced, designed for one purpose. And, like any tool, you are expected to perform flawlessly until you break. The knowledge of this, the cold, hard reality that your individual humanity has been sacrificed for a greater, terrifying purpose, is a constant, heavy weight. You become an automaton, moving through the motions, your inner self screaming against the chains of an existence that has stripped you of everything that makes you, you. The insidious nature of the anomaly itself is arguably the most terrifying aspect of your containment. It's not just the physical danger, the immediate threat of dismemberment or violent death. It's the way SCP-053 subtly, relentlessly warps your perception of reality, eroding your sanity from the inside out. Her childlike innocence is a cruel, mocking veil over a destructive force, and your mind struggles to reconcile these two opposing truths. You find yourself constantly questioning your own judgments, your own memories. Was that a genuine laugh, or a precursor to a sudden, inexplicable outburst? Did she really just look at you with malice, or was it merely a trick of the light, a figment of your overstressed imagination? The lines between what is real and what is a product of your paranoia begin to blur. You second-guess every decision, every interaction, fearing that a misstep could trigger an event that costs not just your life, but the lives of those around you. The anomaly instills a unique form of learned helplessness. You are tasked with its care, its containment, yet you are utterly powerless against its effects. You cannot reason with it, cannot appeal to its empathy, for it possesses none. This constant state of being responsible for something you cannot control, something that can turn on you without warning or discernible pattern, creates a profound psychological prison. You are trapped in a dance with a destructive entity, always a step behind, always reacting, never truly in command. And then there's the existential dread, the chilling realization that this entity, this small, innocent-looking child, is an inherent threat to all life around it. You are not just containing an object, you are containing a fundamental force of chaos, a living paradox. This knowledge seeps into your bones, coloring every thought, every dream. It makes the world outside the containment chamber seem fragile, vulnerable. You carry the weight of this understanding, this terrifying secret, and it isolates you further, a silent witness to a truth too horrific for the uninitiated to comprehend. The anomaly doesn't just kill, it warps, it breaks, it infects the very fabric of your mind, leaving you a hollowed-out shell, haunted by the innocent smile of a monster. The relentless psychological warfare waged by SCP-053's very existence creates a state of perpetual, agonizing vigilance. You are always on edge. There is no true rest, no genuine relaxation. Even in moments of apparent calm, a part of your mind remains hyper-alert, scanning for the slightest shift in her demeanor, the subtlest change in the air. This isn't just professional duty. It's a primal survival instinct that has been stretched and distorted into a constant, soul-crushing hum. Every sound, every movement becomes amplified. The rustle of her dress, the soft tap of her foot, the innocent melody of a lullaby she hums. These are not comforting domestic noises. They are potential harbingers of doom, signals that the anomalous effect might be about to manifest. Your senses become finely tuned to detect the anomalies, but this heightened awareness also means that your mind processes every benign detail as a potential threat. A shadow on the wall, a flicker of the lights, a distant cough from another sector, all are filtered through the lens of extreme paranoia. This constant state of high alert is not sustainable. It chips away at your cognitive functions, dulling your reflexes, clouding your judgment, and leading to chronic fatigue that no amount of sleep can alleviate. Your body and mind are locked in an exhausting cycle of fight or flight, constantly preparing for an attack that may or may not come. And when it does, you are entirely unprepared for its unpredictable nature. The stress hormones flood your system, eroding your physical health as much as your mental fortitude. You learn to suppress your natural human reactions, the urge to flinch, to cry out, to show fear. These are luxuries you cannot afford. Any perceived weakness might compromise containment, might even provoke the anomaly. So, you cultivate an impenetrable facade of calm, a mask of professional detachment that slowly, inevitably, fuses with your true self. The vigilance required to survive becomes the vigilance that defines you, leaving you a hollowed-out sentinel, forever scanning the horizon for a danger that resides within the most innocent of forms. The world outside becomes a blurry, distant concept, while the containment chamber and the small, smiling girl within it consume your entire existence. Perhaps the most chilling aspect is the slow, agonizing corruption of your own humanity. You are forced to witness, and sometimes even facilitate, acts that would be unthinkable in any other context. The swift, brutal termination of personnel who succumb to 053's influence becomes a routine, a necessary evil. You see men and women, once vibrant and alive, descend into madness and violence, their bodies twisted into grotesque parodies of their former selves. And you are there, observing, documenting, sometimes even participating in the cleanup. This constant exposure to extreme violence and the casual destruction of human life, even when justified by containment protocols, desensitizes you. The horror becomes mundane. The screams of the afflicted, once jarring, become just another sound in the containment chamber. Your emotional responses dull, your empathy erodes. You find yourself viewing those who succumb as statistics, as failures of protocol, rather than as individuals with lives and families. This isn't a conscious choice. It's a slow, insidious poisoning of your moral compass. You begin to make choices, to rationalize actions that would have repulsed your former self. The line between right and wrong blurs, replaced by the stark, pragmatic demands of containment. The needs of the many, the safety of the world, become the only guiding principles, overriding any personal ethical qualms. You might find yourself arguing for more aggressive containment measures, for harsher protocols, for the expedited termination of infected individuals, all in the name of security. The monster you fight begins to reflect itself in you. You become colder, harder, more detached. You sacrifice parts of yourself, piece by piece, until you are left with a hollowed-out shell, efficient and unfeeling. The cost of containing 053 isn't just physical or psychological, it's existential. It's the forfeiture of your very soul, traded for the fleeting illusion of control over an uncontrollable force. And the most terrifying realization is that, after a time, you might not even notice the change, until a quiet moment reveals the stranger staring back at you from the reflective surface of the containment glass. The isolation isn't merely physical, the cold steel and concrete walls. It's a profound spiritual solitude. You are privy to knowledge that no one else can truly comprehend, forced to bear witness to horrors that shatter the very fabric of normal understanding. This creates an unbridgeable chasm between you and the outside world. How could you ever explain the casual brutality of SCP-053, the chilling innocence behind its destructive power, to someone who has never seen it? Your experiences become a secret burden, one that grows heavier with each passing day. The language you speak, the unspoken truths you live by, are alien to those who walk free. Attempts to articulate the psychological toll, the moral compromises, the sheer existential dread are met with blank stares, polite discomfort, or worse, a subtle dismissal. They cannot understand, and in their inability to grasp your reality, you become further alienated. This emotional chasm fosters a sense of profound loneliness. You are surrounded by colleagues, by other caretakers, but even among them, a true connection is rare. Everyone carries their own private horrors, their own wounds, and the unspoken rule is to maintain a professional distance, to not burden others with the full weight of your despair. Empathy becomes a luxury, a vulnerability that could compromise your ability to function. The outside world becomes a distant, almost mythological place. Its concerns, its joys, its sorrows seem trivial and far removed from the stark, brutal reality of your existence. You watch news reports, perhaps, or glimpse snippets of conversation from passing personnel, and it all seems unreal, like a poorly written play. Your reality is defined by the containment chamber, by the unpredictable moods of a childlike entity, by the ever-present threat of annihilation. You are a ghost, haunting the periphery of a world you once belonged to, forever marked by the terror you contain. This profound, inescapable isolation ensures that even if you were to ever leave this place, a piece of you would forever remain trapped within the cold, silent walls of 053's containment. The insidious process of dehumanization is perhaps the most complete and terrifying transformation you undergo. You are no longer seen as an individual, a person with hopes, dreams, and a past. You are a resource, a unit of containment, an expendable cog in the Foundation's vast, unfeeling machinery. Your personal well-being, your psychological health, your very life are secondary to the primary directive: secure, contain, protect. And in the context of SCP-053, secure, contain, protect often means sacrificing the protector. This dehumanization is not just external, it becomes internalized. You start to see yourself through the Foundation's eyes. Your name becomes a designation. Your suffering data points on a psychological evaluation. Your personal story, your identity, slowly erodes under the relentless pressure of your duty. You are no longer John Smith, father, friend, aspiring artist. You are now Caretaker 7, a temporary placeholder in a dangerous role, awaiting the inevitable. The Foundation's calculated use of personnel, their acknowledgement of your finite tenure, reinforces this sense of worthlessness. You are not meant to survive indefinitely. Your purpose is to delay the inevitable, to provide valuable data, to buy time. And this knowledge, this chilling certainty, strips away any sense of personal agency. Your future is not your own. It is predetermined by the anomaly you guard. You become a living ghost, a shadow of your former self, performing tasks with a robotic efficiency born of trauma and resignation. Your emotions are suppressed, your individuality muted. The very act of caring for 053, while simultaneously knowing you are a potential victim, creates a profound psychological schism. You are both caregiver and potential sacrifice, a role that devours the self from the inside out. And when your time eventually comes, when the anomaly claims you, it won't be a tragedy in the traditional sense. It will be a statistical event, an expected outcome, a data entry. Your death will be a small necessary cost in the grand scheme of containment. This cold, brutal reality is the ultimate dehumanization, rendering your existence and demise as mere footnotes in a terrifying, endless war against the unknown. You are not a hero, you are a tool, and tools are meant to be used and eventually broken. The erosion of your very sense of self is a slow, insidious process, often unnoticed until it's too late. You begin to question your own perceptions, your memories, even your sanity. The constant pressure, the pervasive dread, the unreliability of your environment, all conspire to dismantle the foundations of your identity. What is real? What is illusion? When every interaction with SCP-053 carries the potential for a reality-bending horror, your grip on objective truth loosens. Did that shadow just move, or was it a trick of the light, a flicker of your exhausted mind? Was that giggle innocent, or did it carry a subtle, malicious undertone? The questions multiply, each one a tiny chisel chipping away at your certainty. You become trapped in a recursive loop of self-doubt, constantly second-guessing your judgments, your observations, your very understanding of the world. This is not merely paranoia. It's a profound existential uncertainty where the bedrock of your personal reality becomes shifting sand. Your past, your personal history begins to fade, replaced by the all-consuming present of containment. Memories become indistinct, details blur. Who were you before this? What did you value? The person you were seems distant, almost a stranger. The demands of the anomaly, the protocols, the endless vigilance overwrite your personal narrative. You are no longer defined by your life outside, but by your role within these walls, by your proximity to 053. This blurring of identity extends to your own thoughts and emotions. Are they truly yours, or are they a product of the overwhelming stress, the constant fear, the subtle psychological influence of the anomaly itself? You might find yourself having thoughts, urges, or reactions that feel alien, unsettlingly detached from your core self. The boundaries of your consciousness become porous, susceptible to the insidious creep of the anomalous. You are not just a caretaker. You are a medium, a conduit, a canvas upon which the horrors of 053 are painted, slowly but surely, until the original image is entirely obscured. The subtle, almost imperceptible, physical toll is just as devastating as the psychological. It's not the immediate, brutal injuries inflicted by a rampaging anomaly, but a slow, creeping decay. Chronic exhaustion becomes your baseline, a heavy cloak you can never shed. Sleep offers little true rest, haunted by the spectre of 053, by the memory of screams, by the gnawing fear of what tomorrow might bring. Your body, perpetually on high alert, never truly relaxes, leading to a constant state of physiological stress that gnaws at your very core. Your immune system, battered by endless stress hormones, weakens. Minor colds become persistent coughs. Small infections linger, refusing to yield. You become susceptible to every passing pathogen, your body a fragile vessel against an onslaught of illness. This isn't just about feeling unwell. It's a constant reminder of your vulnerability, another crack in the facade of control. Then there's the premature aging. The lines etched around your eyes deepen, not just from lack of sleep, but from the constant strain, the perpetual worry. Your hair might thin or prematurely grey, reflecting the internal turmoil. Your posture might slump. Your movements become less fluid, burdened by an invisible weight. You look in the mirror and see a stranger, someone years older than your chronological age, a stark testament to the relentless grind of your duty. Every ache, every persistent fatigue, every new wrinkle is a tangible manifestation of the cost of containment. It's a physical record of the sacrifices you've made, a slow-motion unraveling of your biological self. Your body, once a source of strength, becomes a prison, a decaying shell that struggles to keep pace with the demands placed upon it. You are literally wasting away, day by day, a living monument to the silent, suffocating horror of SCP-053. And the most terrifying part? This physical deterioration is often the least of your concerns, overshadowed by the psychological and moral wreckage within. The chilling reality of moral erosion is a slow, almost imperceptible descent into a landscape of shadows. You begin your tenure with a clear sense of right and wrong, a defined moral compass. But SCP-053, in its terrifying innocence, forces you into situations where those lines blur, then dissipate entirely. You witness unimaginable cruelty, both inflicted by the anomaly and, at times, necessarily inflicted upon it for containment. Each such encounter chips away at your ethical framework. You learn to rationalize the unthinkable. The screams of D-class personnel, the frantic pleas of those succumbing to 053's influence become less about individual suffering and more about necessary data, a regrettable but unavoidable byproduct of study and containment. Your empathy, once a cornerstone of your humanity, becomes a liability, a weakness that could compromise your ability to perform your duties. So, you learn to switch it off, to compartmentalize, to build walls around your heart. Morally ambiguous choices become routine. Do you prioritize the life of a single researcher or the containment of a world-ending threat? When the answer is always the latter, even if it means sacrificing an innocent, the weight of those decisions begins to reshape your soul. You participate in, or at least bear witness to, acts that would have once repulsed you to your core, and you do so with a growing sense of detachment, a chilling acceptance. This desensitization extends beyond the immediate horrors of 053. The world outside, with its petty grievances and minor injustices, begins to seem utterly insignificant. Your capacity for outrage, for compassion, for genuine human connection diminishes. You become a shell, hardened by fire, capable of enduring the most grotesque spectacles without flinching. But what remains within that shell? A profound emptiness, a chilling void where your moral center once resided. The profound, irreversible alteration of your core humanity is the final terrifying consequence. You are no longer merely a person who has seen terrible things. You are a person who has been fundamentally changed by them. The choices you've made, the horrors you've endured, the empathy you've shed, they all combine to forge a new you, a distorted reflection of who you once were. You are a survivor, yes, but at what cost? The price of containing SCP-053 is often the very essence of your soul, leaving behind a morally compromised, desensitized husk, forever scarred by the terrifying intimacy of your duty. The isolation is a crushing, pervasive weight, far more profound than mere physical solitude. You are not just alone, you are fundamentally separated, alienated from all that once defined your world. The facility itself becomes a tomb, its sterile corridors and reinforced doors serving not only to contain SCP-053, but to contain you. You are a prisoner in the service of a prisoner, an extension of the very containment protocols you enforce. This isn't the isolation of a hermit seeking solace. It's the forced psychological severance from genuine human connection. Your interactions are transactional, defined by protocols, reports, and the chilling presence of the anomaly. Colleagues are fellow sufferers, not true confidants. Their understanding is born of shared trauma, not shared joy or genuine intimacy. There are no casual conversations about the weather, no shared laughter over mundane things. Every word exchanged is tinged with the gravity of your shared burden, the constant, unspoken threat. The world outside becomes a distant, fading memory. Family, friends, former lives, they recede into an abstract concept, a dream that feels increasingly unreal. You cannot share your experiences, the horrors you witness, the moral compromises you make. How could you? Their world is safe, oblivious. To try and explain would be futile, perhaps even dangerous. So you retreat, further and further, into the impenetrable fortress of your own mind. This profound loneliness transforms you. You become a dehumanized extension of the containment facility, your identity inextricably linked to your duty. Your purpose is singular, to exist within the orbit of SCP-053, to manage its whims, to endure its effects. You are a living instrument of containment, your personal needs and desires rendered irrelevant. The scars you accumulate are not just physical or psychological, they are the indelible marks of an existence stripped bare, reduced to a terrifying solitary function. You are forever scarred by this solitary and terrifying duty. Even if you were to somehow escape, to re-enter the normal world, the chasm would remain. The horrors you've seen, the person you've become, would render you an alien, forever observing life from a distance, unable to truly connect. You are a ghost, haunting the periphery of a world you can no longer inhabit, a testament to the suffocating power of your inescapable isolation. The dehumanization within the Foundation is a terrifyingly efficient process, especially for those assigned to SCP-053. You enter as a person with a name, a history, aspirations. You leave as a number, a statistic, a variable in a complex equation of containment. Your individuality is not merely suppressed, it is systematically dismantled, deemed irrelevant to the paramount goal of securing, containing, and protecting. Every protocol, every directive, every sterile interaction reinforces this reduction. Your personal agency is stripped away, piece by agonizing piece. You are told where to go, when to eat, what to observe, how to react. Your thoughts, your feelings, your fears, they are secondary to the operational demands. To express them openly is to invite psychological evaluation, to be deemed a potential liability, another breach in the system. So, you learn to silence them, to internalize the terrifying truth that your subjective experience holds no value here. Your self-worth evaporates, replaced by a cold, utilitarian assessment of your function. Are you performing your duties adequately? Are you maintaining containment? Are you contributing to the data? These are the only metrics that matter. Your life, your death, become mere data points for the Foundation's endless archives. A D-class casualty is logged. A researcher's breakdown is noted. Both are just numbers, inputs into a system designed to manage anomalies, not to nurture humanity. This transformation into a tool is not a sudden metamorphosis, but a gradual, soul-crushing erosion. You cease to be an individual capable of independent thought or emotion and become an extension of the facility, a living, breathing cog in the vast, impersonal machinery of containment. Your purpose is no longer your own. It is dictated by the anomaly you guard and the organization that controls you. The profound, terrifying truth is that you are more contained than SCP-053 itself. The child is confined by walls and protocols, but its anomalous nature persists, untamed. You, however, are contained not just physically, but psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. Your very essence is locked away, subsumed by the relentless demands of your role. You are a tool, and tools have no personal agency, no self-worth, no individual purpose beyond the terrifying task they are designed to serve. SCP-053's true terror isn't in its physical manifestation, though that is horrifying enough. Its true horror lies in its insidious psychological impact, a subtle, creeping poison that seeps into your mind, twisting your perceptions and eroding the very bedrock of your sanity. It doesn't need to directly attack you. Its mere presence is enough to begin the slow, agonizing process of mental unraveling. The first casualty is often your perception of reality. The constant exposure to the anomaly, the unpredictable, violent outbursts of those around it, the clinical detachment of the Foundation's analysis, it all conspires to create a warped lens through which you view the world. What is real? What is merely the effect of 053? The lines blur, the certainties crumble. You begin to question your own memories, your own interpretations of events. Was that really a child's innocent laugh, or the prelude to another brutal incident? This erosion of perception leads directly to a state of constant dread. It's not the sharp, sudden fear of an immediate threat, but a dull, persistent ache in the pit of your stomach. A low-frequency hum of terror that never quite fades. Every moment is shadowed by the potential for catastrophe. Every interaction with SCP-053, a tightrope walk over an abyss. You live in a perpetual state of anticipation, waiting for the next violent outburst, the next inexplicable event, the next human sacrifice demanded by its presence. This dread is coupled with an overwhelming sense of helplessness. You are not a hero. You are a caretaker. Your role is not to defeat 053, but to manage it, to contain its destructive influence. You are a witness, often powerless to prevent the inevitable suffering of those around you. This powerlessness gnaws at you, creating a deep-seated frustration and despair. You are trapped, bound by duty, by protocol, by the very nature of the anomaly, watching as sanity unravels around you, and slowly, surely, within you. The insidious nature of this psychological assault means there's no clear enemy to fight, no tangible threat to overcome. It's a battle against your own mind, against the very fabric of your perception. And in that battle, against the quiet, relentless hum of 053's presence, you are constantly, terrifyingly losing. The psychological burden inflicted by SCP-053's mere presence is not a fleeting discomfort. It is a relentless, soul-crushing weight that presses down on you from the moment you wake until the rare moments you find uneasy sleep. It's a constant, exhausting vigilance that gnaws at the edges of your sanity, eroding your mind and body with agonizing slowness. Imagine living every second on high alert, your senses strained, your nerves frayed, for a threat that is both ever-present and maddeningly elusive. The anomaly doesn't actively pursue you, doesn't stalk you from the shadows. Instead, it exists, and its existence demands perpetual hyper-awareness. Every flicker of movement in the containment chamber, every faint sound, every shift in its seemingly innocent demeanor must be meticulously observed, analyzed, and catalogued. This isn't just a job, it's a siege on your neural pathways. This constant vigilance demands an impossible level of focus. Your mind is a battlefield, constantly processing incoming data, searching for patterns, anticipating the next chaotic outburst. There's no downtime, no moment of true mental repose. Even when you're not directly observing 053, the echoes of its presence reverberate through your thoughts. You replay scenarios, second-guess decisions, and dwell on the inevitable, brutal consequences of any lapse in attention. This relentless mental exertion drains you more profoundly than any physical labor. Your cognitive functions begin to fray. Memory lapses become more frequent, decision-making clouded by fatigue, and your capacity for complex thought diminishes. You find yourself struggling with simple tasks, your mind a fog of exhaustion and anxiety. It's a slow intellectual decay, a deterioration of your very ability to process and comprehend. And as your mind weakens, so too does your body. The chronic stress elevates your cortisol levels, disrupting sleep patterns, weakening your immune system, and accelerating the aging process. You feel perpetually unwell, a dull ache settling into your bones, your muscles perpetually tense. The exhaustion isn't just about needing sleep, it's a systemic depletion, a profound weariness that permeates every cell of your being. SCP-053's presence doesn't just demand your attention, it demands your very essence, consuming you from the inside out, leaving behind a hollowed-out shell, perpetually on edge, perpetually exhausted, perpetually trapped in the shadow of its soul-crushing burden. Prolonged exposure to the extreme violence surrounding SCP-053 and the necessity of implementing brutal containment protocols doesn't just desensitize you. It gradually erodes your very humanity. You don't just witness horrors, you become an accomplice, a participant, an enforcer of actions that would, under any other circumstance, shatter your moral core. Initially, there is resistance, a primal revulsion at the sights, the sounds, the sheer savagery. You flinch, you recoil, you feel the bile rise in your throat. But the incidents are frequent, the stakes impossibly high. Each time, you are forced to make choices, often brutal ones, to ensure containment. You learn to steel yourself, to compartmentalize, to numb the empathetic response that screams against the atrocities unfolding before you. This desensitization is a survival mechanism, a necessary shield against madness. But it comes at a terrible cost. The lines between right and wrong blur, then vanish altogether. Actions that once seemed unthinkable become routine. The screams of the affected, the mangled bodies, the desperate pleas of those unknowingly drawn into 053's orbit. They become background noise, data points in a grim, repetitive cycle. You stop feeling the sharp pangs of horror and instead Register them with a clinical detachment. Your humanity, once a vibrant, complex tapestry of empathy, compassion, and moral conviction, begins to unravel. It's not a sudden tearing, but a slow, insidious fraying, thread by agonizing thread. You start to see people not as individuals with inherent worth, but as variables, as potential threats to containment, or worse, as expendable resources. The sanctity of life diminishes, replaced by the cold logic of the greater good, a phrase that becomes a chilling justification for unspeakable acts. This transformation is irreversible. Even if you were to be removed from 053's presence, the shell remains. The desensitization is ingrained, the moral compass permanently recalibrated. You become a morally compromised entity, a ghost of your former self, forever tainted by the violence you've witnessed and the brutality you've been forced to accept, even enact. You are no longer just a caretaker. You are a desensitized, morally ambiguous echo of the very horrors you are meant to contain. The price of containment, for you, is nothing less than your soul. The profound and inescapable psychological isolation experienced by those who bear witness to incomprehensible horrors is a chasm that cannot be bridged. Once you have seen what lurks in the shadows, once you have touched the edges of true nightmare, the world of the uninitiated becomes a distant, alien place. Imagine trying to explain the reality of SCP-053, the casual horror, the systematic brutality, the erosion of sanity, to someone who has only ever known the mundane. Their eyes would glaze over, their minds would recoil, unable to process the sheer weight of such truths. You would be met with disbelief, with pity, perhaps even with fear. And so, you learn to keep silent. This silence, this inability to share the burden of your experiences, slowly builds an invisible wall around you. You become an island, adrift in a sea of ignorance, forever separated from genuine human connection. The laughter of children, the simple joys of everyday life, the warmth of shared intimacy, these things become hollow, distant echoes, devoid of meaning when compared to the stark, terrifying reality you inhabit. The isolation deepens with the understanding that even within the Foundation, true kinship is a dangerous luxury. Trust is a fragile thing, easily shattered by the demands of containment, by the constant threat of anomalous influence, or by the cold, calculating logic of higher command. Everyone is a potential vector, a potential victim, or a potential threat. You learn to guard your thoughts, your feelings, your very self, even from those who share your grim duty. You become a living testament to the horrors you contain, a silent sentinel burdened by unspeakable knowledge. The chasm between you and the world outside is not merely physical, it is existential. It is the unbridgeable gulf between those who know and those who can never truly comprehend. And in that terrifying solitude, you slowly, inevitably begin to disappear. Your identity, your sense of self, your very humanity becomes lost in the echoes of the unspeakable, leaving behind only the chilling silence of profound isolation. You are not just contained. You are utterly alone, forever changed by the horrors you've witnessed, forever separated from the world you once called your own.